We operate under the Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Chapter 26 of the Town of Danvers General Bylaw, the Wetlands Protection Bylaw. Our first order of business is I'm going to conduct a roll call of our members. So first off is Vanessa Curran.
Present.
Michael Splain.
Present.
Ann McGill.
Present.
Chelsea King.
Present. Present.
Ken Wally. And Joe O'Donnell. And my name is Peter Wilson, so we have 5 members of the commission present. Staff, when I call your name, please respond that you are present. Georgia Pendergast.
Present.
David Fields.
Present.
And Alicia Lenahan.
Present.
Okay. Anticipated speakers for tonight's meeting, Dan Nitschke. Gloria Bouillon. Craig Schuster.
I'm here, Dan's here, and Gloria's here. This is Craig Schuster.
Okay, so all 3 of you are together?
We are on.
Okay. Okay, Paris Pelletier,
Present.
Jason Pelletier,
He's not here.
and Mike Seecamp.
Present.
Okay. I'm just going to read you an introduction to our remote meeting, so just bear with me, please. Good evening. This open meeting of the Danvers Conservation Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of the emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirements of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted on the town's website, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of this meeting. Before I continue, I just would encourage everyone to mute their computers so that we don't have any disturbing extraneous sounds. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Conservation Commission is convening remotely via Next Act. I just would encourage everyone. I'm sorry. As posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join in. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Meeting materials. Supporting materials that have been provided members of this body will be shown during this transmission. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. Meeting business ground rules. We're now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to assure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or your computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. Members wish to engage in colloquy with other members, please do so through the chair taking care to identify yourself. For items with public comment, we have established an email address for public comment, which is publiccomments@danversmass.gov. This email address is shown online with the stream, along with the streaming of this meeting. Residents may email comments and they will be provided / read out loud after the staff has confirmed their name and address. All email must contain the date and the phrase Conservation Commission in the subject line. We have also established a phone line for public comment. You may call 978-777-0001, extension 2, to provide comment. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. That being said, we've taken our roll call, so we're going to move on to the agenda. And the first item on our agenda is notice of intent for Beverly Airport, 191 Old Burley Street, DEP file number 14-1347. Who is here to represent the applicant, please?
Dan Michi. See ya.
You, Craig.
Are you there, Dan? 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 I think we might have some technical difficulties.
Can you proceed, Greg?
Well, I really kind of need Dan's help a little bit on this one. Hold on.
I see him being online, but I see him being muted.
Yeah, I asked him. I just asked him to try to exit out and try getting back on again.
Dan, I'm just going to give you a minute. If not, we're going to skip on to item number 2, and we can always circle back.
Okay, he's going to try re-signing back into the meeting.
Peter,
Yes, Georgia.
I mean, we could, while we're waiting, to discuss the site visit.
Okay.
I was just as an idea, because I know some members weren't able to make it.
Back in, exit out and go back in.
I'm sorry, it's hard to understand. Okay, while we're waiting, Craig, why don't we just recap the site visit if we could, and I'll proceed with that. And Mike and Vanessa, who joined us, can chime in into that with additional comments. We did get over to see the site last Tuesday, I believe.
Yeah, Tuesday evening.
August 18th. We got to go out on the field and we walked around the perimeter. We saw the fence and it's in different locales. Some of it in the wetlands, some not. We did get to see that there are the perforations in the fence, and that some of the fence is located in the wetlands, and that there has been significant changes, I guess, is the best way to describe it, since the fence was installed. Most notably, in my mind at least, was the fact that a fair amount of the fence posts had been forced out of the ground by frost heaving, which caused the fence to collapse. I know Beverly Airport is proposing to move sections of the fence where they can out of the wetlands, and which would be good. And they're also proposing that they're going to maintain a 10-foot buffer on either side of the fence so that prevent vegetation growth, which would allow for the fence to be easily maintained and inspected. That being said, I'd invite Mike and Vanessa, who joined us on the walk, to see if there's anything else they want to contribute to that. So let me call on Mike first to see if there's something else you want to add to that, Mike. You muted, Mike.
Am I unmuted now? Can you hear
Now
me?
you're good. Yep.
That's good. The sections of the old fence, like you mentioned, had popped out. There's large concrete footings or blocks that those posts are in. They were proposing to just cut them and leave them, but if they're popping out, I think they should just remove them anyway. Certainly the ones that have popped out, and really all of them, if that's what's happening. I guess in the wetland it freezes and they pop out. Also on the buffer, my understanding was that it would be 5 feet on either side of the fence for a total of 10 feet. Is that correct?
No, Mike, it's 10 feet either side. So
10 feet either side?
Yeah, 10
So
feet from the fence on either side, yes.
I thought when we did the walk, someone had said 5 feet.
I don't remember that. I remember 10 feet either side. That's something standard we've always done at many other airports for fencing.
Yeah, what's the width of the cutter?
Well, maybe that's what it is, because I don't think that's 10 feet wide. Maybe the width of the cutter might have been like 5 or 6 feet. That's probably
Yeah.
what it's like. So you take a couple passes, to make 10 feet.
Yeah, my recollection was 10 feet on either side.
10 on either? And so that you would be making 2 passes to make the 10 feet. And where do you get the 10-foot number from?
That's just been a standard. There's no, FAA requirement, quote unquote, at all. Like I could find it in any, wording. So it's been a standard practice. That's practiced at many airports. I've done it throughout a number of Massachusetts airports. Anytime we put a fence in where we can, try to have at least maintain a 10-foot on either side so they can get access. So they get access to the back side of the fence or the front side, to do some vegetation clearing when they need to.
All right. I think other than I had at one point said, why not leave the, at one point where we wrapped up the walk, if you remember, there wasn't clear, but we could see there was going to be a straight line up to a little berm or something where there were some trees. And I think I had said, why not just leave that alone? You're not going up there, but you have fence up there now?
Yes, we get rid of it. We don't want to have an enclosed area with 2 fences, so that's why we'd like to get rid of the other fence.
All right. And for that, you just need to remove the fence. Are you willing to remove the footings as well?
Yeah, that's the commission's decision. I mean, generally, what I've been doing lately too, if the foundation is buried in the ground, I would like to just cut the post and bury it, like 3 or 4 inches down, so we don't damage the wetlands any more than we have to. But I'm also seeing the walk that we did last Tuesday, where some of those concrete foundations are definitely popping out. I would definitely want to remove those and backfill the hole.
Yeah.
We'll put conservation seed mix on top and all that. So, so I know if it's concrete and it's buried and you pull it out, sometimes it makes more of a mess than you need to.
Yeah, but if it's exposed, you want to take it out, right?
Yes, I would like to. Yes.
All right. That's all I have.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Vanessa, any other comments on our site walk?
No, I think that pretty much covers everything. I don't have anything else to add.
Other than Peter's struggling to walk through the jungle there. Okay, Craig and Dan, have you resolved your technical issues so we can proceed here?
Well, this is Craig. I know he's been talking. Dan, he's on again, but I think he's still having audio problems. Yeah, so I think you probably could hear us, but he can't talk.
Actually, I see him on here twice. Is that, you
Is he?
seen that, Georgia?
Oh,
Yeah, I do. What I suggest Dan does is just use the call-in number and not try to log in through the computer.
Georgia, Dan sent you some PDFs today. Are we able to show the various types of mats? Because you guys asked about a little bit about what type of mats we would use in the wetlands to help, keep the low PSI.
Yep, yeah, I can pull those up right now. Just give me a sec. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
All right, I just have to open one more.
I could see that.
So what you're seeing here is, and at the very end too, I think, do we have a timber bog mat as well? I think, keep going. Yeah, keep going.
This
So
one.
that's the, so usually when we're in the wetlands, because this fence, we gotta construct, basically we wanna do it when it's dry, so that means it's gonna be middle of summer. But there's always a chance, obviously, if the wetlands are wet or whatever, that we do have to put mats down. We generally put the mats down anyway, even if it's dry. And there's usually 3 types of mats that I've seen used, and in fact, we're kind of using them right now. I have a fence project in New Bedford that's the wetlands. And here you see like a composite mat, it's like a plastic mat, and these just lay out flat and they interconnect. That's so the vehicles can drive on it without rutting the wetlands or damaging any further. So you got this dirt base, and if you scroll up, Georgia.
That's the top of the page.
Okay, scroll down then. Just want to show you. Okay, so this is different type of. Oh, that's
this.
I know.
Sorry.
It's lagging. Looks like it's lagging.
So I have this one that only shows this type.
Yeah. So keep going. Keep going. Yeah, go all the way down.
And that's the last page I have. There's only 4 pages.
Okay, so go back to the top a little bit for me, please. Very top. There was another type of mat we've used, and we're kind of using. I didn't show. I don't know what happened. Alternate mats. We have how many PDFs here? What's this alternate number 1? All right, this is a different type of mat. It's a composite mat that we also use and we've used in the past. So what we're getting at, we are going to use some sort of matting. We also would consider using timber bog mats, which is basically made out of timber, which serve the same purpose. So whenever we go out to construction, obviously this stuff will be in the specification that the contractor would have to use these things while they're in the 25-foot buffer zone and in the wetland in order to protect the wetland. I don't know if you have any questions on that. Uh-oh.
I have a question. Which one are you choosing?
It could be any other 3. And usually I'll start off with timber bog mats, but we usually put on there that a contractor could submit something or equal. And those other composite ones are the ones I have seen recently that they've submitted. And of course, I usually check with the Concom agent, because I'll just give you an example. In New Bedford, there's one wet area that the Concom agent said, no, let's use the timber bog mats because they're thicker, they're like 8 inches high. And in other areas where it's a little drier wetland, they're okay with using the composite mats. But we checked with the Concom agent first just to make sure that was okay. So I would expect something similar to this.
Yeah. What do you think's going to go over those mats? What sort of equipment?
Let's see, pickup truck, maybe some small clearing equipment, because if you got to clear some heavy brush or whatever, obviously they get in the wetland. Maybe let's say pickup truck with a compressor, to pound posts in. By the way, as you know, we're just going to pound posts in the wetlands, and that can be concreted. So it's not really heavy equipment. Maybe a small track machine. It's attachments to help with the clearing and driving the posts in.
And that'll be wider than the 10 feet to do that part, I
Yeah,
admit.
the mats are usually like 14 feet wide.
14?
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Peter, it looks like you said something, but you're on mute. Peter, you're on mute.
There you go. You're all set, Peter.
Will you need some heavy equipment to get material out of the ground?
No, like I said, probably a track machine, a small tractor machine that could grab onto the post and pull it out. So it's not like a big excavator or anything like that. And in fact, that would be about the size of it.
Okay. All right, and you've laid out in your plan just where you have to go into the wetlands to pull material out, and
Yes,
where you want to move the fence out of the wetlands up
Yeah.
into the uplands.
yes.
Okay, so
Like I mentioned, we're trying to get out of the wetlands as much as we can, because, the airport doesn't want them in the wetlands, because you get their equipment down there, whatever, if it looks like it's trying to soft spot underneath and they get stuck, and, but obviously you saw it during the walk, it's just pretty difficult to get it everywhere out of the wetlands.
okay, and just a quick question, just wondering why they even put it in the wetlands when they first installed it.
I have no idea. That fence has been there probably 30 years at least.
Well, I thought this fence was installed after 9/11.
That fence, I don't think that portion, no. That fence is already there. There's already fence around a lot of this airport already after 9/11. This is a lot of old fence.
Okay, but I think overall we do want to get material. We do want to get that fencing out of the wetlands. So
Correct.
whenever that's possible, we're all for that. Okay, I'm going to start polling the members and just see if people have other questions or comments, and then we'll proceed from there. So the first I'm going to ask is Chelsea. I'm not sure, Chelsea, how much you're familiar with this, or even if she's qualified to be asking, because she hasn't been in on this from the beginning. Can you comment on that?
I don't know how much I can comment. I read the memo and the summary, and I read the plan. From what I can gather, I'm very much in favor of getting the fencing out of the wetlands as much as we can. And if that means like putting down mats, if it means removing the fence directly out of the resource area, even if it's still within like the 25-foot, I'm in favor of it, personally.
Okay.
Just from what I've gathered so far.
Any questions, Chelsea?
Not really. No.
Okay, let me move on to Ann. Ann, I'm sorry we missed you. We thought you were going to be there, but I guess there was some miscommunication. So anything that you could ask, so maybe I or other members of the committee or the consultants could answer your questions. Please feel free to ask.
Okay, no, I think Mike gave me a summary of the site visit, and that answered some of my earlier questions. I'm good with the information we have so far. Thank you.
Okay. Mike, any further questions or comments?
Just how are they going to determine when they can get it out of the wetland and when they can't? What's going to determine that? I mean, is it the boundaries? Are they willing to come within there, further inside their boundary if it means getting out of the wetland?
Well, on the plan, that's what we did. That is the optimal place of the the fence. We can't push any closer to the runways because we have FAA safety areas and other free areas and other things that fences cannot be in for safety reasons for aircraft. So, and we don't want to be too far away from the property line to invite people to come on property that's not theirs. So, there's a weighing right there, where's the best position? And I think what I have on the plans is the best position. Now, if we're in the field, we can adjust it a little more. Once we start seeing things, maybe we can do that. But right now, it's at its place, optimal place.
All right, I'm satisfied with that answer. Especially that there's certain constraints as to how close you can be to the runway. But if he's willing to do as much as they can to get it out of the wetland, then that's, I think, the most we can ask for. Thank you.
Okay, all set, Mike?
Yes.
And Vanessa?
I don't have any additional questions.
Okay, I guess now is a good time as any to open it to public comment. So I know that Mr. Zubarak has signed in and would like to make a comment. So Mr. Zubarak, now is your time. Before you start, you're muted. Excuse me, Mark, you're muted. You have to unmute. Is there any way we can get a hold of him?
Peter, I think he might be on the phone with Georgia.
Yeah, it looks like Georgia's on the phone with him right now.
All right. Hey, while we're waiting, I do have a question for Chairman. It says, and maybe for Georgia here, it says applicant Gloria Bullion. Why does it say that?
She is the general manager over at the airport.
Okay, is that proper? That the real applicant is the airport, right?
Right. My interpretation would be that she's representing the airport.
Is that right, Georgia or David?
Yes.
Yeah, that's. Sorry, Georgia,
David.
go ahead.
I would assume it's a similar situation as if the town were to apply for something, the town manager would put his name on the application. In this situation, the manager of the airport is putting her name on the application.
Okay. Might be better it must say on the application her title or her affiliation, manager of the facility or whatever.
It may.
Yeah, all right. All right, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Zubarak is still muted. Have you been in touch with him, Georgia?
There he is.
Mark?
Someone was just answering that question about the manager of the airport. What was that?
That was feedback, I think, Mike.
Oh, all right. Yeah. All right, thank you.
Okay, now moving on to public comment, we will move on to Mr. Zubarak, who has a comment.
So we're having a little technical difficulty with Mark's. He's here. He's listening on a delay.
I hear him chuckling, so we can hear him.
Exactly. I'm gonna work offline to get him. Oh, okay. There we go.
Why am I on a delay? What are you, I hope you're not afraid of me saying anything that's going to be unreasonable. Well, the reason I wanted to get on this call with you, because I believe that, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
All right, so I wanted to get on this call because I have experienced in the past an issue in regards to the airport where there were cutting trees all around our neighborhoods in the Burley Street area. What I have a question on is where and how many trees are going to be removed, and how are these going to be handled if there are any trees being removed? I was not available to go on the walk, but I understand 3 of your members have gone onto the walk, and I am seriously wondering, are there any trees that are going to be cut? I can understand the shrubs, and that's fine, but the trees is what worries me, because 20 years ago we had a massive incident where the airport went through and cut trees from neighbors' properties. So is there anyone that can answer that question?
Now I'm going to pass that question along to the consultant. So either Craig or Dan, could you give us shed any light on that, please?
Sure. Craig Schuster, Airport Solutions Group. So any cutting we're doing is on airport property only. And we're going to be cutting within 10 feet of either side of our proposed fence. If there happens to be some trees, they'll have to be removed. But from what I see from the walk, it's mostly, if there's trees, there's small trees and heavy brush. But that's my answer. All the cuttings will be on the airport property. It's not going to be off airport property at all.
Okay, thanks, Craig. Mark, you're muted again.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a follow-up question while we're waiting?
Yes, you can. Go ahead.
Yeah, to the applicant, with regards to the 10-foot swath on either side of where the fence is, are you able to ensure that that 10-foot side that is closest to Burley or the neighbors will not encroach on their property? And if so, how do you accomplish that?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure to encroach. Like I said, it's going to be on airport property. So if we're close to a property line, I'll have in my plans to tell the contractor that they're going to have to lay out the airport property line in that section just to make sure we don't go over that. But
yeah, because you have to clear on the other side, and it sounds like if you're putting those mats down on either side, you're going to go, I think now you're saying you're going to go 14 feet, right?
That's just for the mats, yeah.
Yeah, but to put a mat down, you have to clear, you can't put a mat where there's a shrub without clearing that shrub or that tree, right?
No. Right. So initially we have to make it a little wider to get the mats in where we can. And after that, it's just going to be a 10-foot wide swath. And like I said, if we're near a property line, we will have it covered in our plans and specs that the contractor's going to have to do a property survey along that edge to make sure we don't encroach on somebody else's property.
Yeah, so you have to allow for more like 14 feet rather than 10, so you don't encroach
just to get the mat in. Just to get the mats in, yes.
I don't think that was clear before. I was thinking 5 feet, but that was the width of the machine.
You make this
it's beyond the 10. It's more like 14, at least to get the mats in.
Just to get the mats in, yeah.
So it's a total of 28.
No, it's not.
No.
Well, it's 14 on either side, I think.
Well, no, because we won't need mats on both sides, Mike. We only need them on one side to either remove or install the fence.
Okay, yeah, all right. So it'll be 14 on one and 10 on the other?
Right, correct.
24. Okay, thank you for that correction.
And I'm just gonna add something in. I think I heard something during our site walk that there is an FAA requirement that any tree over a certain height has to be removed. Is that a fair statement?
If it's an obstruction to the approach to the runway, yes.
Okay.
We determine that, we can tell by tree height sometimes, but only if it's generally if it's a obstruction which is a hazard to aircraft landing, then yes, that tree has to be removed.
And how much, plus or minus to the boundaries of the runway does that apply? In other words, if a tree is 50 feet high, but it's 200 feet beyond the boundary of the runway, or the line of the runway?
Okay, all right, let's see how I can best explain this. So every runway end there is an invisible plane, right, that starts at the end and it shoots up into the air at a certain slope. It's usually 20 to 1. And it splays out in a trapezoid fashion. So in that trapezoid, with its imaginary space, goes right up to the airport. So it all depends how far, like you said, how far the tree is. It's 200 feet, 50 feet high, but also depends on the elevation of the ground. Because you can be lower and my runway could be higher, so we can still be clearing it. So there's a little mathematical stuff we have to do. So it's not easy to explain on the phone. It's much easier I can explain with a picture, I think. But that's basically how we look at runway ends and if trees are obstructions.
I understand where you're coming from. So,
okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Zabark, does that answer your question?
Peter, we had Mark was having some difficulties, so he's probably not going to hear the answer until about now. I've told him to call in. He's going to try. I'm not sure how we want to approach this, if he wants to talk again or if Craig wants to give a really quick overview again.
He's shaking his head. I think he hears us. But, okay. We can come back to Mr. Zabark when we get our technical. Are there any other calls or emails, quick subject?
Mr. Chair, there are no emails about this matter.
Okay, thanks, Dave. And Alicia, are there any phone calls?
Mr. Chair, there was a phone call. It was from Antonio Betancourt, town meeting member of Precinct 5.
Okay.
I had two questions. The first being, how many acres of trees will be removed? And the second question was, is the airport going to do anything about the runoff from the airport to the property, especially those at 91 to 93 Burley Street?
Craig, could you comment on that?
I don't have a number of how much acres we're clearing. I'd have to get back to you with that number. I don't have the top of my head. The other one about the runoff, that has nothing to do with the fence project, so I don't understand that question.
Right, I would say the same, that that's probably outside of the scope of this. Could someone clarify for me, because my audio is not good, what was the first question there, please?
Mr. Chair, the first question was, how many acres of trees will be removed?
Okay, and Craig, you're going to research that for us?
Yes, I can get that number. I just don't have it off my head. It'll be easy to get.
Okay.
Peter, or Mr. Chair, I apologize. I think Mr. Zubrick may have called in as call-in user 4, so I'm going to have Mr. Zubrick just say something to see if we can hear him.
I see that he's not muted anymore.
Mark, if you can hear us, can you say something? Okay. So that is not working.
I don't like this system.
Me neither, whoever said that.
I mean, it's not on our end. Mark's not getting audio directly from his computer. He's listening to it on another source, so it's coming in delayed after the fact. And he has no microphone.
Okay.
I don't think. He's tried to call in, so Mark can also email his concerns as well.
Right. So is that it for public comment? I know Mr. Zubarek probably has some more things. But are there any other phone calls or emails?
Nope, I don't have anything.
Okay, I would propose that we continue the hearing because I want to give Mr. Zubarek, a good chance to ask his questions. And I don't think that this project is imminent. So I think we have the latitude of continuing to our next meeting so that we could probably get our technical issues resolved or maybe even move to a public meeting. So let me just informally poll the members. If anyone disagrees with that, just chime in.
I would only say I think I'm in favor of the project, but if you feel we need to continue it, you're the chairman, and you want Mr. Zaverick to have some more input. But I got the gist of his questions. They seem to have to do with the trees being cleared. I thought that was answered.
Right. But I also think you might have more questions, Mike. So
Okay.
I agree with you. I think overall, it's a project needs to be done, but I think just to do our due diligence, we probably should continue and hopefully resolve our technical issues and move on.
I have a comment. Is the application in part looking for grant money to complete this project? And is there a timetable?
Craig Schuster, Airport Solutions Group. So, the idea is to get the permit. You think the permits are good for 3 years, and we are trying to get money from Mass Aeronautics to do this project. Unfortunately, we have nothing in place yet. They are aware of the project, so it's going to be based on their budgets, like a lot of cities, towns, and states. So once they tell us if they have the money for it, then we will proceed and try to get this project. We'd like to see if we can get something done this summer, but again, it's going to be based off of the budgets from Mass Aeronautics.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Vanessa or Chelsea, have any further comment?
I've got nothing.
I have two thoughts or questions. One is, if the fence needs to be, 10 feet need to be cleared beyond the fence, is the fence at least 10 feet from the property lines in all directions? Are there areas that it's closer or at the property line? I guess I'll stop there for an answer before I move on to the next one.
Sure, Craig Schuster, Airport Solutions Group. So you're correct. So anywhere there's a property line, it will be at least 10 feet away from that. Because if we were right on the property line or a foot off, then I would not try to even clear on the other side, because you're not going to go on other people's property. So whenever we're near a property line, we're at least 10 feet off of it.
Okay, so that's already taken into account in the current set of plans.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then another question is, we were talking about trees that get too tall and they interfere with the approach to the runway. If there is a tree that's not on airport property that's interfering with the approach to the runway, would you cut that and would you notify the property owner before doing so?
No, we would not cut that because the airport doesn't have a legal right to go on somebody's property to do that. If there is a known tree, there's two ways to go about it. The airport can get an easement on the property, which is we go through an FA process to do that. That way they get the actual legal right to cut any tree obstruction in the future if it grows. Or you can approach the homeowner and ask them, hey, can we, they have an agreement that this tree needs to be removed, then yes or no. So that's the two ways of doing it. Other than that, we don't. The airport can't force its way onto somebody's property to cut the tree.
Okay, so nothing would ever be cut off airport property without proper notification.
Correct, without a proper process in place. And Gloria, you're online. If I miss something, please chime in.
I think Gloria is no longer in.
Okay. I'm all
Why I can't.
I hear Gloria. Gloria, we can hear you.
Okay. We went through a process quite similar. It was about a 3-year process, if I believe, to get the obstruction removed. But yes, we have procedures in place, and there's proper notifications and timelines. So grant money is available for obstruction removal.
Can I dial that?
Okay, does that answer your question, Vanessa?
Yes, thank you.
And Chelsea, any other questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay. Are there any further public comments before I move along?
Mr. Chair, there was a call-in from a Gary Leston of 2010 Burley Street, and he's disappointed and doesn't feel that Mr. Zubrick has had a fair share of making comments.
Okay, so noted, and I think we are going to accommodate that by, I'm proposing that we continue the hearing, so.
Mr. Chair, if you're looking for a motion to continue, I'll make said motion, only because.
Hold on a second, Mike. Let's just see if there's any further comment before we go ahead, and then I will entertain that motion.
Mr. Chairman, there's no other comment via email.
Okay, and you're all set, Alicia, with further phone calls?
I am, Mr. Chair.
I would guess that. I mean, I'm seeing three call-ins. So have we dealt with all three of those?
We have.
Okay. All right. I'm proposing that we entertain a motion to continue this particular hearing until our next meeting, so that we can work out our technical difficulties with Mr. Zubarak or anyone else that wants to make a comment. So if someone would be willing to make that motion, we could proceed from there.
All right, I'll make a motion that we continue the public hearing for Beverly Airport, 191 Old Burley Street, DEP file number 14-1347 to our next scheduled public hearing, which, what is the date on that, Georgia?
That is going, sorry, September 10th.
To September 10th. And after saying that, I'm gonna just suggest that I have to leave the meeting because I have a 2-hour drive and we're supposed to start our vacation. But I think the next matter is an enforcement order, and I can follow up with Georgia on that later. So if it's all right with the board, I'd like to finish up with just this motion and then leave the meeting.
Well, don't forget your exercise bike, Mike.
My son's here, and I told him you were coming for it, Peter.
Oh, excellent. Okay, good. I do have some priorities I got to deal with.
All right. I know your surgery.
A motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, I'm just going to take a roll call of the members to see if we're going to vote to continue the meeting, continue the hearing until our next meeting on September the 10th. So I'll start with Vanessa.
Yes.
Chelsea.
Yes.
Ann.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
And Peter, yes. Okay. All right, so that said, we will continue this hearing until our next meeting on September the 10th. Mike, enjoy your time down the Cape, and you can tell your son I'll be over at the conclusion of our meeting.
All right, thank you. All right, bye, everyone.
Bye, Mike.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye.
Okay, on to the second item on our agenda, an enforcement order for 100 Water Street, DEP file number 14-1067. The applicant is Paris Pelletier. And I think the appropriate move here is to have Georgia give us all some background on what the situation is here, and then we'll proceed from there.
Of course. Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, if we could just confirm that the applicants are here. I saw that the Pelletiers were here before, but it's not appearing that way anymore.
Yeah, you're right. I did see their names, and now I don't see them.
So maybe while I do an update, I'd like to use that time for them to kind of figure out what's going on. So if Mike or Jason or Paris is here, if they could say something.
Yeah, I'm here. This is Mike.
Okay, great. So we do have someone for the applicant. That's the most important part. Just one second. So to give an update to the commission on this, you also received in your memo a quick synopsis that was provided by the DEP. So this property, 100 Water Street, I can wanted to pull up just a plan so people can get associated with it if the commission knows where it is. Just one second. Apologies. All right. There we go. So can everyone see that?
We did for a second.
You
It's coming back. Yep.
You see it now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So this vacant site, as you can see here, and Mike will also be able to provide some background as well. But both of us were not around for the project. Some commission members may have been around, but this goes back to about 2007 is when a superseding order of conditions was issued by the DEP. And so now come forward to 2020, there are still some items from that superseding order that were never completed. One being some bank restoration work, and two, of course, the single family home that was approved under that superseding order. There is some background involving a drainage pipe that was located through the parcel, a town drainage pipe that's been relocated. But essentially what you can imagine was there was a large pipe just outletting water into the bank. So there was a lot of erosion and it's not stable. The commission, of course, has the opportunity to view the site today, and Mike can speak to the conditions that are what it's like now. But I'm sure it's changed since 2009, but there's been no active construction on it. A large portion of the superseding order was to provide bank restoration. So there is a bank restoration plan under the SOC. So today, the DEP contacted me and had noted that the bank stabilization work is really essential. And of course, any fill is just falling in right there into the resource area. So the best way to get this area stabilized and secured would to be an issue an enforcement order requiring Mr. Pelletier to stabilize the site as required under the superseding order. And of course, now considering the conditions on site as they stand now instead of 2009. So Mr. Pelletier is aware of the process that the DEP is recommending. He's been compliant since I issued the enforcement letter a couple weeks ago. So we had kind of spoken to each other, and we figured the best approach going forward would be for Mike Seecamp, his consultant, to give an overview of what that bank restoration work looks like. Again, a general overview, and hopefully the commission can go out there to see it for themselves. And then in going forward, the commission would issue an enforcement order if they're satisfied with that work, basically enforcing Mr. Pelletier to get the bank stabilized. And once that work is done, then the DEP suggests that the commission require everything to be stabilized before a new notice of intent is filed to build a single family home. So that was a somewhat brief overview, but if there are any questions, I can answer those, but I can also pass it off to Mike if he wants to speak to more of the technical aspects.
Yeah, that'll be fine unless any of the commissions have any questions. I'll get started.
Mike, why don't you go ahead and then we'll go along with questions.
Okay. So just to add to some of the history that Georgia was talking about, there was along with the superseding order of conditions, there was also an order of conditions under the Danvers Wetlands Protection Bylaw, and they both have expired. Some work has been done on the property, as Georgia explained. The pipe has been moved as it was required to under the order of conditions, and part of the process for building the dwelling on that site was to stabilize the bank and provide mitigation plantings and along the salt marsh area and along the bank. And I see the plan there. And the cross-hatched area is the what would be considered basically a salt marsh, and the more densely and darker crosshatched area is the upland mitigation area. As I said, the pipe has been moved, and I believe what was required in your enforcement order was to bring it into compliance with the bank stabilization and the mitigation work. And what we're planning to do is hire a specialist in those endeavors. I mean, I'm familiar with sand dunes and bordering vegetated wetlands, but it takes a little bit more expertise to do bank stabilization, and there are several companies in the area that do that. So we're in contact with a couple of them, and Mr. Pelletier is trying to work out a process. What we intend to do is have that entity that we hire basically update the restoration plan, and then present that to the commission. And with your approval, we will go ahead and implement it. Now, obviously, since the orders of conditions have expired, at some point, besides getting satisfying the requirements of the enforcement order, we'll also have to ask for a certificate of compliance for partial completion to close out the old notice of intent, and then we will be filing, we'll be starting over basically with a new notice of intent. But before we can do that, and this is, we met with Heidi Davis from DEP in early June, both Paris, his brother Jason, and I, and we discussed this, and at that time I suggested that it would probably be best to have the commission handle all this, because ultimately we'd have to come back to you under the bylaw anyway, and you have the ability to deal with all of that. DEP does not have the ability to deal with the bylaw requirements. So, but what we'd like to do is just basically do what was approved before. So at this point, I'll just turn it over to the commission and answer your questions, hopefully.
By the way, this is Paris Pelletier. I lost the connection somehow. I've been trying to get back on, so I phoned in. So I don't know if you can hear me or not, anybody.
We can, and we can see you.
Oh, you can see me too? Okay.
Oh, wow.
I
Okay.
can see some people, and I don't know what's going on here. I sometimes have horrible internet connection, so I'm talking into my phone. But I can see several people, but not everybody.
Okay. Just a quick general question. So my understanding is that some bank stabilization has to be done, and we're going to presumably order a I forget the term for it, an enforcement order that has to be done before we can proceed with dealing with either a certificate of compliance or a subsequent NOI. Is that a fair statement? I see George.
Correct.
Yes,
Okay,
that's
so
right. We already received the enforcement order. And
you received
perhaps,
that from who?
George, you could get bring up a copy, Georgia.
Yeah, so process-wise, and from talking to Heidi, so what Mr. Pelletier was issued was an enforcement letter. Of course, the situation we're in isn't very typical, and that you were well aware of the enforcement and the work that we are requiring you to do. So what I have on the screen now is what we call an enforcement letter, and Heidi, I had suggested this process to Heidi, and she's seen this would be best. So basically, this is an initial way to get you in front of the commission. So as you can see, the requirements I had listed were cease and desist, come before the commission. If the commission, my suggestion would be if they were satisfied with that new bank restoration plan you do eventually provide once you hire more technical help, and they agree with that, we would then issue a Form 9 under the DEP, which is a actual enforcement order form. And in that, it would require you to follow the plan dated blank, 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 and any conditions the commission sees fit to do that bank restoration work. So that would be the issuing result of this enforcement order conversation. Not tonight, of course, but.
Yeah, okay, yeah, great. Thanks for the clarification on the status of that letter that you sent. But we agree that that's the process that we intend to follow. All activities have ceased and desist, but we'd like to get going on it. So, like I said, the Pelletiers are planning to hire a company with expertise in bank restoration, and we'll come up with a plan and present it as soon as we can get that underway.
Okay, so that being said, are we looking to vote on an enforcement order here tonight, Georgia?
My suggestion to the commission would be that they continue this enforcement order hearing until, you could suggest the next meeting. Paris and Mike, it's up to you guys if you think that plan and maybe a bit of a narrative describing the updated work can be provided in time for the September 24th meeting.
September 24th or September 10th?
September 10th, the deadline was yesterday, so.
So it would have to be the 24th. Okay.
The deadline said, or if you guys can't make that September 9th deadline, we can push that off. So I suggest, Mike and Paris, if you want to provide a later date, you can throw one out now, or the commission can continue to the next hearing. And then if we get to, or at your permission to the 24th, and we can continue if needed.
Yeah, so we could go for the 24th, and the deadline would be the deadline would be the 9th, would it?
September 9th, correct.
So we could go for that, and if we don't make it, we could just ask for another continuance?
Correct.
Yeah, so why don't we do that?
Okay, and then I think it would probably be beneficial for all of the members of the commission to get down, probably just take a look at the property. I mean, I've driven by it many times on Water Street, but I never really took the time to stop and look in detail. So if anyone else is thinking along those lines, I would suggest that we probably get down there and see it within the next, so now we have 4 weeks pretty much before we have to vote on anything. Is that correct?
Yeah, you have at least 4 weeks, I'd say. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that being said, let me just poll the members to see if there's any other questions, and then we'll probably just vote to continue. So let me go in. Any questions or comments? Are you muted, Ann? Okay, go ahead.
Oh, no, I don't have any comments. I think a site visit will help in terms of the seeing what the bank erosion is. Thank you.
Yeah, just so we can, like I said, I've just seen it from the street, but I haven't looked down closer to the water. So, Vanessa, any comments to add to that?
No questions at this time.
Okay, and Chelsea, are you still there? Any comments or concerns?
I'm still here. I don't have any questions or comments, no.
Okay, so let me just suggest this for the members. Instead of a formal, could we just take the time to just, get out of your car and just kind of walk around and view the site between now and then? Is that agreeable to everybody?
That works for me.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
I just asked Mr. Pelletier. I've only seen the site from the roadway, but is the site safe? And what's the best way to access the site for commission members?
The best way would be to, I would say, since that's somewhat of a busy street, would be to park in the neighborhood across the street, which is Rainbow Terrace, and there's several other streets, I don't know the names, and just cross Water Street. Just be careful, and that's the best way. And you can enter the site from the adjacent property, 98 Water, which we happen to own, which is a yellow house with a pretty large parking lot. And I'll tell the people that live, who actually rent the house from me, that to expect people to be walking in and out. And
okay.
Are.
Good. That's
so there won't be any problem accessing the site. I'll just tell the people in the house that there'll be people walking around the property, just in case there's a question.
Okay. Any other comments? Is there any comments from the public?
Mr. Chair, there are no comments via email.
How about by phone, Alicia?
Mr. Chair, there are no comments by phone.
Okay, then I think I'd entertain a motion that we continue this hearing until our next scheduled, actually, to our September 24th meeting. If someone's willing to make that motion, we could vote on that.
I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing to our meeting at September 24th for 100 Water Street, DEP file number 14-1067.
Okay, the motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, let me pull the members to see if we are supported. First, Vanessa,
Yes.
Anne,
Yes.
Chelsea,
Yes.
Peter, yes. Okay, so we will continue that meeting to our September 24th meeting. Moving on, we will.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank
We'll
you.
see you again.
Okay.
Minutes, from what I saw today, there were minutes for the July 9th, 2020 meeting. Is that correct, Alicia?
That is correct.
Okay, I read those and they seem fine to me, but I just want to open it to the board to see if there's any further comments. So I guess the first I would ask would be Vanessa.
I had one comment on the minutes. At the very end of the adjournment, it says that I both made and seconded the motion. So probably only one of those is true. That's it.
Lisa, any comment on that? I mean, I don't think that's a major issue.
We can go back and double check the audio and the video and just see who actually seconded. It may just be a mistake on the wording.
Okay, so that means we'll have to continue then. So we'll continue with minutes from both July 9th, July 23rd, and the August 13th meeting.
Well, can we vote to approve them pending that correction?
You could do that, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That way it just kind of gets it off the agenda.
Okay, good question. Okay, so with that suggestion being said, Vanessa, you want to make a motion that we accept those minutes? And
Sure. I make a motion to accept the meeting minutes from the Danvers Conservation Commission meeting of July 9th, 2020, with one correction on the last page to correct the names of the people that made the motion and seconded the motion to adjourn the meeting.
Okay, the motion's been made. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Okay, let me pull the members. Vanessa, are you okay with that?
Yes.
Chelsea?
Yes.
Ian?
Yes.
And Peter? Yes. Okay, so with the next meeting, we'll have minutes from July 23rd, August 13th, and tonight, August 27th. Moving on to old and new business. Distribute zoning language and timeline for the fall town meeting. I'm going to pass this over to Georgia, and she can just give us a little background on that, please.
Yes. So if everyone saw in the memo, we're getting prepared for those general bylaw, wetland bylaw changes that David and I had introduced, I want to say back in June. And we did a brief PowerPoint. We had talked about, looking at the 35 and the 25 buffer zones, some more regulations for our docks and piers. So that was that two-step process where we need to update the bylaw and then subsequently update the regulation. So that there is a defined process at the town level for how the boards and commissions handle those regulatory zoning and bylaw changes. The Conservation Commission, our bylaw is in the general bylaws of the town. So what that requires is that we hold a general public hearing. It's dissimilar to the planning board and where they hold advertised public hearings. but we follow a very similar process. So what you saw in the memo that I actually have up here, if everyone can see this, was just a couple dates that David and I had thrown out. So the biggest one you can see is fall town meeting is proposed right now potentially for November 16th. And that's where town meeting would vote on the proposed changes to the wetlands bylaw. So before that, we hope to have, we propose these hearing dates for the commission to really look at the bylaw, highlight anything, go over questions, scenarios, opinions, edits. And if the commission feels they want to talk about more changes, we can add more dates to this as well. But there are, again, some deadlines in here that we do need to meet. So we would want to wrap up discussion probably around early October, the middle of October at the latest. So tonight was just an initial, hey, this is what's coming up. And then for the next meeting, and hopefully even before then, I'll have the draft language for you guys to really look at. And then from there, we can start discussion. And then on top of that, we're working on some, we had talked about it, the residential cluster development, so maybe some cluster bylaw changes. And that's not necessarily something that the commission needs to review and approve and recommend to town meeting, but it is something that staff believes that the commission should have, an opinion and a view on, because it is relative to conservation, open space, and of course we have some wetland provisions in there as well. So there's going to be some new updated material for you guys to look at coming for the next meeting. And if you have any questions now, Dave and I are happy to answer those. And as we get more detail going, we can definitely have some more in-depth discussions.
Okay, so from what I'm hearing, this is going to be an agenda item for our next meeting, where we'll have a little more discussion over the whole.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, that's the only question I have. I mean, there's really nothing for us to vote on, right? It's just, you're just giving us a little update.
Yep.
Okay, anyone else have questions or concerns? No? Okay, all right, so we'll look for that on the agenda for the September 10th meeting. Okay, now, the next is, I'm sure you're all aware that I am going in for knee replacement surgery next week. My anticipation is that I will not be fully prepared or ready to chair the meeting on September 10th. So we'd like to vote on a temporary chair to conduct at least that meeting, and hopefully I'll be back ready to go for subsequent meetings. That being said, is there anyone that's interested in doing that? I spoke to Vanessa. I have not asked Ann or Chelsea if they would be interested, so I guess I'm going to put you on the spot now. And I'll go Chelsea first because she's the most senior person.
I don't know if I'll be available, but I would support Vanessa in being a temporary chair.
Okay. And Anne, any comments or concerns?
I'm still learning the lingo here.
Okay, yeah.
So I think I don't have enough qualifications to be as good as Peter.
Peter's not that good. That being said, I did, Vanessa and I, as we were struggling through the jungle at the airport, I mentioned it to her and she said she probably wouldn't want to do that. But Mike, having been a past chairman, is open to it. So that being said, I'm just going to take an executive position here and say that I would nominate Mike to be the chairman of this. And I think somewhere down the road we have to vote on a permanent vice chair. Is that okay with the rules, Georgia?
It's fine. I actually was just checking with David to see if we can nominate someone that's not here, even though he had shown interest. So, David, are you available to answer this one?
Yeah, no, I think that's fine if you've had previous discussions with Mike. Since we don't have any other officers, there's not a clerk or a vice chair, it would really fall to a matter of seniority or,
Yeah.
hey, if you're not here, right, you get the job.
Any volunteers take 3 steps forward. Okay, that being said, I'm going to put Mike's name in the nomination for the chairman for our September 10th meeting, and we'll proceed from there. And that being said, I'm hoping that I'm at least capable of being a member for that meeting, but I just don't think I have enough time to prepare or do a good job of being the chair.
Yeah.
So I guess I would need a member to make a motion that we nominate Mike to be the chairman for that meeting, and then we'll proceed from there.
Okay, I will nominate Mike Spillane to be the substitute chair for the next meeting and beyond as needed.
Okay. The motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, let me poll the members. So Vanessa, are you a yes or no on this proposal?
Yes.
Anne, yes or no?
Yeah. Yes.
Chelsea?
Yes.
And Peter would be yes. Okay, so Mike will be the guy, at least for September the 10th. I think that's it that we have. Is there anything else, Georgia, before I make a motion to adjourn?
No, that's all, Peter.
Peter, I'd just like to say good luck with your surgery.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
Got to get through that first 24.
Absolutely. Good luck, Peter.
Well, thanks. One thing I just want to throw out there, given our technical difficulties tonight, and I know some of the other boards are having public meetings. I really would like to see us moving in that direction. So I know Georgia and Dave, whatever you can do in that light, I think would be appreciated.
Of course.
Sure,
Okay.
Peter, we can look into that.
Okay, good. And that being said, I guess I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn our meeting.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
I second the motion.
Okay, Vanessa, yes or no?
Yes.
Anne, yes or no?
Yes.
And Chelsea?
Yes.
And Peter, yes. Okay, good. Thank you all for your time, and I will hopefully be a participant on the 10th. And if not, I will watch it on DCAT.
Thank you, Peter. Good luck.
Thanks, guys. Enjoy your Labor Day weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.